Hello, and welcome to the 6th episode of the Tuesday Night Podcast. I am your host today, SBJ, and with me today, as always, is Alan.
It's the Halloween episode!
And Sean.
Hi, it's the Halloween episode.
All right, good start. I almost called this the other podcast I do, so I'm still getting used to that. It's weird. We are all together after various Skype issues. We are here.
I'm here too, and I'm gonna curse you all. It's time to play the Curse of the Worst. See if you can avoid saying these words during this podcast. If you say it, or if our listeners catch you saying it, you're out. I've totally randomly determined these curse words. For instance, SBJ, you, I hear, have a fear of clowns. Therefore, you must not ever say the word it. See if you can make this podcast without saying the word it. Sean, you're cursed too. See if you can make this podcast without saying the word game. Game. Good luck, considering it's a podcast about games. And Alan, you've been cursed too. The curse of the worst. Alan, you must try to make this entire podcast without saying the word indulgence.
Whoa. That's not fair at all.
Wow, that was weird. But cool, let's see if we can do it.
All right, yeah, I guess we got to do it. Weird curse person.
I assume it was a witch.
There's a lot of things that were like both cringeworthy and impressive with that.
I love it.
Okay. Wait, what do we say? Oh, let's start off with table talk. Okay, so if you are a new listener to the Tuesday Night Podcast, we are a podcast about board gamings and tabletop games and card games and dice games and strip poker. And we are going to start off with table talk, which is what we've been playing for the week. Does anyone want to start?
It's time for a table talk.
Alan, you usually always have something.
All right, yeah, I definitely do have something, and I think I know which one I'm going to focus on. This past week, I have played, but not limited to, Spoooooooky, World Championship Russian Roulette, Mysterium, yes, which is what I probably want to talk about, unless you guys want to talk about something else. Definitely played some more Jackbox TV with Quiplash and Bombcore. Got to play the amazing game Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, which, again, isn't technically a tabletop game, but also the game Knock Your Blocks Off, which is from Game Right Games, which is pretty good. And I also played some Spyfall this weekend. Oh, and Camel Up. But I figured since it's Halloween, if you guys want me to talk about one, I should probably talk about Mysterium, since it's spooky.
Really? You don't think Camel Up is more of a Halloween game?
It is true. Camels are pretty Halloween traditional.
They're very spooky.
Yeah, it is spooky. But yeah, that's what I played.
All right. Well,
I'd love to talk about Mysterium.
Yeah, let's hear about Mysterium.
Should we do this official and try the elevator pitch? See if I can do it in a minute?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Someone give me the tone indicating that you've just got on the elevator with me. I only have a maximum of a minute to go.
All right, I could put like the little audio like ding of an elevator in.
Oh, sweet. Oh, was that it?
Sure.
Okay. Hey, congratulations. You are psychic. Yes, in fact, all of you and up to your 8 friends, but realistically can be like 20 friends, could be a psychic in this game of Mysterium. Unfortunately, you've been hired to solve a mystery. That's right, there's been a murder. You gotta figure out who, what, when, where. And the only way you can figure that out is by getting these ambiguous dreams as indicated by these cards. So in this game of Mysterium, it's kind of like Dixit meets Clue, but it's completely cooperative. Every single paranormal investigator, psychic, whatever you want to call them, are getting these ambiguous dreams to first figure out what weapon was used, what location it happened in, and exactly who was the murderer. But every investigator has someone different, and at the end of the game, everybody has to figure out exactly which psychic is thinking of the correct murderer. And that is the game. And so you have one player that's the ghost, and the other players, which are the private investigators. Ah, yes! I think I got that. How'd that sound? Did that make sense?
That sounded good.
Okay, cool.
I think I summed it up on the Board with Life podcast with saying that it's Dixit plus Clue, but more of a game than both of them.
Yeah, I could say that. I mean, that's kind of a knock to both Dixit and Clue at the same time. But yeah, it's a good game. Not without its faults, but I think also its compliments. So it was a really good time. We played it with 12 people, because even though you each play a private, paranormal, psychic, whatever, a medium, I guess would be the appropriate term. It's Halloween, so I should probably get that right. But each medium, you can talk to each other if you want to. Like, I think it's this, I think it's no, I think it's this one. You can really talk to each other. So it's wholly cooperative. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say the whole game is cooperative. So even though that one player is the ghost or is it a ghost? Is it a psychic?
I think
It's a ghost. The ghost is giving you dreams.
Right. So that even though that player is is asymmetrical, so they're doing something totally different than the other 6 people or however many people, everyone's still working together to complete the puzzle.
It definitely is one of those thematic type games that I really love, in that to me it does feel like, just because the art and the components and the mechanics and gameplay, like that you are getting messages from someone who can only communicate to you in a very strange, abstract way. And I think it gets that across really well.
I think the funny thing is how abstract the dreams cards actually are, because they're so weird that you can totally be off. I had one teammate say, all right, well, apparently I'm having a dream about a woman wearing a dress who's about to punch a teddy bear, and there's a stick in the background, and there's forests in Disney movies, and there's specifically really spooky forests in Cinderella. Therefore, I think the weapon's a clock, because there's also the clock from Beauty and the Beast. Like, what the crap? So
Sounds
not
like
only
you were playing with a bad player.
Sorry, Diane. So anyways,
Oh yeah.
yeah. It was good though. It was fun.
It's one of those games where I'm curious, because you were saying you could play with however many players. But in games like that, or like code names, I wonder if the more players you play with, the harder it gets, because it's one of those games where you can find a reason to back up your theory anywhere if you dig deep enough. But usually it's somebody saying, this is the most apparent thing that comes across to me in this card, and somebody else is trying to make a connection with them, right? Like, oh, it's blue. You just go with your gut. But the more you analyze and the more you break it down, I've seen more often, like, you just get confused in your own sort of weird web. Does that make sense?
Absolutely
Yeah.
makes sense. The difference is, though, in code names after the game, usually you can remember, I totally meant this. I can't believe you meant that. But in Mysterium, with so many players, you totally don't remember. When someone says, why did you give me the yellow card with the woman walking across the bridge about to punch a teddy bear? The answer is usually, man, I don't remember. That was like 30 minutes ago. I don't remember. And I gave out so many other cards. So that's one big difference. And I guess that's the other, I'm not going to say criticism, because I kind of enjoyed it. We were able to eat and just socialize and casually come up, because it took a good 5 minutes at least for the ghost, because we had more than one since we had so many players, put down their cards. So you could just totally hang out until those cards were distributed, and then you can talk about it, then go socialize and come back and socialize and come back while the ghosts are doing their thing.
That might have been part of it. In my group, I was playing with just 3 people, like a ghost and 2 investigators or whatever. And it was a really quiet environment. We were staring each other down. We were very silent the entire time, like, this, that. And so at the end, it was very easy to retrace our steps and say, this, I was trying to get you to think of the yellow from this card. And this, I was trying to get you to think of, this object in this card. So it might have to do with, like, the player count.
That makes sense. Makes sense.
When I played it, what was really interesting, and I don't know if you mentioned, but the ghost gets random cards to distribute. It's not like their hand is perfect in what they can provide people. And
It was a short elevator ride.
that's fine. So the thing I noticed in my game is my friend who was sitting next to me, he would get a card pretty much instantly every round from the ghost, and they were so obvious. Like, I think he was like the policeman. The police guy did it in like
You said your word.
the jail area, and it was the gun or something. And so all 3 rounds he got it instantly. The ghost like without thinking, kind of handed the card, and it was almost like, is it this obvious, or is like over analyzing or overthinking it? But it ended up being
Mhm.
that the ghost just had the perfect card at the time for that player. And then my situation always seemed to be last, and it always seemed to be more abstract. And I thought, like, I was like trying to use that against the guy sitting next to me, being like, "Oh no, I think it's too obvious. Like that can't be it. Like blah blah blah." And in retrospect, it was just because the ghost had terrible cards at the end, so I was always kind of getting the short end of the stick. Like my situation wasn't as easy as the dude sitting next to me, which I think is cool and obviously can change and makes the game very social.
There is one thing: the order in which the cards are handed out can imply something in of itself. I think ideally the way you're supposed to play, because you know me and not reading rule books, is I think the ghost is supposed to organize them all in their folders first and then hand them all out at the same time.
Oh,
But what ours definitely did was they'd get one and hand it to one person and keep going. And that was good for so many players because then we weren't all waiting. But obviously, the first cards they handed out was like, well, this is the clearest. Because when they looked at all these cards, it was like, well, this one's obviously corresponds with this image. So, yeah, I think the order in which they pass them out does make a difference. It implies something.
I don't know if I would want to do the party game setting like you, because I don't have a lot of game. I'm always in a
Friends, is
situation
that what
with
you're going to say? Oh, I'm sorry. Keep going.
I'm always in a situation with 7 people, and there's not a lot of games that, like the main game that comes to mind that has 7 players is Bonanza, which is a great game. But Mysterium was like really exciting for me because it was like, oh yeah, this is another game that plays really well with 7 people. And anything more than that, you're kind of going into the party territory, like Resistance or Werewolf or Two Rooms and a Boom or something like that.
It's a close one. You almost didn't remember what Terms of the Boom was.
I'm wondering if we can go to a whole
that other game.
podcast without mentioning Two Rooms and a Boom.
Well, that which didn't make it a curse word. Maybe next Halloween.
Yeah, but I just got my copy of Mysterium last week, so I'm very excited to play
Oh,
it this
nice.
weekend.
I should pick it up. I've been meaning to. Something I've been really interested in recently is this game, Kingdom Death. Have you guys heard of this game?
No, is it Halloween themed? Let's talk about this.
It's not Halloween themed.
It was a Kickstarter.
Yeah, it was a Kickstarter. It's Kingdom Death. I think they plan to do multiple expansions. The first base game is called Kingdom Death Monster, I believe. Huge Kickstarter, and part of this new like wave of very well funded minis games. And I think it even ran for like months, like 2 or 3 month long Kickstarter campaign, which I've never seen before. But it's gorgeous. And basically the idea here is that it's an RPG with miniatures that sort of grows and evolves as you play it. So as your characters get armor, you get to put on the armor miniature onto your actual guy. And so your character looks cooler and cooler, maybe like you would have in Diablo or something like that, but on a real miniature. And it's gorgeous, great components, everything like that. But the biggest hit for me, of course, is the price point, which is $400.
Fudge.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a super lot, and I really want the game, but I keep thinking like I could buy a PlayStation 4, or I could buy 4 other huge games like Imperial Assault. I could buy at least 4 times over for that price. Even I could even get a really good head start on like a Warhammer 40,000 army with that much money,
Or pay
and I'm
some bills.
or pay some bills, or buy some drugs or whatever. So it's just I'm seeing this trend a lot recently. I'm curious if you guys are seeing it too. This inflation of board game prices, as
Let me
well
ask you a
as
couple of questions. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
As
no.
well as what? I want to just ask you, is it a campaign game that will last a
yes,
long
absolutely.
time?
It's meant to be a campaign
So like
game.
Descent.
It's not like Descent. It's more open world than that. I think that there's a lot of options and a lot of different ways you could take it. It's not like you're constrained to one dungeon, but the whole point is sort of that you could keep playing this indefinitely.
So like Descent in that it's campaign, but not like Descent in that it's restricted to just dungeon and dungeon crawling and that kind
Right. I don't think it's just like 3 or 4 adventures. I think it's like a whole world and a system to go along with it.
The way I think about it, I like to think about as my time as units of fun. And I usually use movies as the common denominator, where a movie nowadays costs at least $10 typically, and it's about 2 hours long, which equates to like $5 an hour. So if I decide I'm going to have an entertaining night with my friends, if it's about $5 per person per hour or better, then it's golden. And that's why I love tabletop games, because a lot of times you get that almost instantly. Like Mysterium, with using that equation, already paid for itself because we played with 12 people in just an hour. and the game. Well, where's my math? So I think that equates anyway. But
It
That's like,
does.
yeah, that's over $50, right? Like in
yeah,
Mysterium's, yeah.
so the big question is, would it hold up to that equation? Would it be worth the $400, the $500 per hour per player? I don't know.
Well, can I ask? I knew a lot about Kingdom Death just because somebody I worked with backed it, and like every day he would like when there would be a new update, he'd have to turn around and tell me how excited he was and blah blah blah, and look at the minis and what they're doing, and kind of in my mind, I was like, this game has to be like vaporware, like it's never going to exist. They're doing too much. Like you put $400 into something that probably is never going to come to market, and I think it was 2 years late, 2 or 3 years late from the Kickstarter, and he did eventually get it about 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
Um, but that's that, and I'm shocked. I'm very impressed that it showed up. But then the thing that always kind of sat with me odd is well, okay, it was a $400 game. That doesn't mean it's good.
Right. It reminds me a lot of the perfect game I would have thought of, not like me personally, but like as a kid, like, oh, it's like an RPG, but it's got miniatures, but you can customize the miniatures and it goes on forever. Would have sounded like an amazing game to me as a kid. But as a grown up, I'm thinking I'd need a dedicated group of people. I'd need to play it like an RPG. I'd need to have a campaign. One of us is going to shell out $400 for this thing, and we have to play it for the next year to really get our money's worth out of it. Which would be very difficult for me, especially when the buy-in for a lot of other RPGs is so much lower, even if you went and bought your own miniatures and everything.
Yeah. Well, you originally asked what other games are the high-end games that we can think of it, or if we're seeing this trend. I mean, let's think of some other games then that are really high-end and
Well,
expensive.
the one on my shelf is not, and it's not really that expensive. Is Twilight Imperium. I
How much
think
is Twilight
I
Imperium?
think it retails for 99, but I got it on a sale day, so I picked it up for 50.
That's not bad.
But I've had it for over a year, and I haven't even I've opened it to take the pieces out and to look at it and be like, oh, one day I will play you. But $100 is I think very expensive. And then the other thing I got before you guys can talk is I backed the Takenoko
Takenoko.
Takenoko collector's edition on Kickstarter, which I think was $120. And they had production delays and everything, which is fine. I'm in no rush to get it, but I kind of know what that game is. I know how good it is. I know that I probably actually won't be playing it. I just kind of wanted it to want it. And I think that's
Hmm.
okay in an aspect of like, okay, like I have this really nice looking game, but here's the $30 version that we'll play, and um, it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's becoming like a very collector-oriented hobby in a lot of ways. And I think we're seeing it on both ends. Like, I feel like there's a push for party games to be cheaper and cheaper. Like, $25, all this is a deck of cards. People are being very um scrupulous, is that the right word, with their components. They're weighing like, oh, this has 100 minis in it, so I'll pay $200 for it. But if it only has a deck of cards in it, then it's only worth $5-10. And so we're seeing this weird separation of games that are worth the high price tag and games that are not. But it's funny to me because the cheaper games, to me, and maybe it's just my group or Alan's group or whoever, hit the table more. I will get more use out of a copy of Spyfall or Werewolf or whatever than I will out of a game like
Twilight Imperium.
Twilight Imperium. Yeah.
Or Ogre.
Or Ogre.
How much is Ogre?
That's a great question. I'm going to look that up right now.
Alan, do you have any like expensive games sitting on your shelf?
Yeah, the one that I think of is the first hit by Cool Mini or Not, and that's the one with all of the Super Dungeon
Super
Explorer.
Dungeon Explorer. Yeah.
Yeah, Super Dungeon Explorer, which I love the name. It has a whole bunch of minis, and that was $100. And the huge draw is that collector's thing where you get all the minis and you want to play it and you get to build them. But once you build it, you start playing the game. You're like, I enjoyed Hero Quest more, or Heroescape, or a lot of those other mini games better. But yeah,
Ogre is $200.
whoo!
And that's definitely a game that I would love to just own, just to have, because it's almost like a cool feat. Like, I can't believe they did this. Um,
I mean, you
but
definitely nailed it with the collector's thing, because I think of my game collection as an art gallery. There's so many
Mhm.
stories to each of them, and I want Ogre just for the mere sake of having a game that's crate size is one. So when stores would order, how many come in your basic crate? One. One. as opposed to like the usual 16 or something like that.
I think you're absolutely right. Like, I want to have that perfect game for every experience. I don't mind having a copy of Ogre if I'm never going to play it, just to say, oh yeah, that's one of the best games in this genre. And Kingdom Death is like that. It scratches that itch where it's like, you don't know about this game? Oh, I got to tell you about this game. But is it worth $400 or $295 in pre-order just to tell people about this crazy game?
Yeah. I think I'm starting to lean towards the opposite. Where prior to playing board games, I was super into video games, and I was like, I need a whole collection of X video game, or like I'm collecting, like look at how many PlayStation 3 games I have, and now I'm going back and trying to collect PlayStation 2 games that line up with that. And at one point, they all ended up in a tote, and then I just started either giving them away or selling them, or because I just don't want physical stuff anymore, or I don't want it as much as I used to. And when I started getting into board games, I went from 0 to 100 board games in less than a year because
Nice.
I was so addicted to the hobby, and I wanted to play so many different things. And I would say like 20 of those 100 never even got the shrink wrap off just because of time or people. And now I'm to the point where I have almost 200 games sitting against a wall because I don't even have bookshelves for them yet. And a lot of them aren't open, and a lot of them I've played once or twice. And kind of after the second playthrough, you know if you want to go back to it, or there's a game that's kind of similar but better. And now I kind of want to not get more, but like get less and make a more refined collection of like, now
Curated.
I can tell a story about every game, because right now I can't do that. And if a game's been on my shelf for over a year and I haven't played it, I'm probably not going to go back and play it at this point.
No, I hear you. I'd rather have a lean collection of like, these are my 6 favorite games to play, and I would be down to play any of these games at any point in time, rather than have like, I'm looking at 5 games right now with the shrink wrap on, just right in front of me, rather than saying like, oh, do you want to play this deck building game or this deck building game or this deck building game? I'd rather just be like, here's Star Realms, or here's the one that I like, you know?
Right.
I think in the last episode we referred to them as emergency games, but I think essential games is probably what we're talking about now. Those games that you essentially want because you know they'll hit the table time and time again. I totally agree.
Well, that went up and down here. Alan played Mysterium. Sean, did you play anything else? I know you brought up Kingdom Death, but anything hit the table?
No, I've spent a lot of time playing Heroes of the Storm this week.
Okay. That's fair. I just got back from Minnesota recently, and I brought a bunch of games, including Mysterium and Codenames and Spyfall, and none of those hit the table. Just didn't have enough time in the day, but I did sneak in a game of Sushi Go, which I don't think we've talked about.
Nice. I love Sushi Go.
You
Yeah,
ready to get on the elevator?
It would probably be a short elevator ride,
That's
I think,
fine.
but
Ding!
let's try it. Sushi Go is a what did they call it? A hand passing
Set collection.
drafting. That was the word I'm looking for. Sushi Go is a drafting game. So if in a 3-player game, you get 9 cards in your hand, 9 different types of sushi, hopefully, and you pick one card, you place it in front of you, you pass your hand to the next person, you collect the hand from the person sitting next to you, and you guys all flip to see what you got, and you look at the next hand, and you play that card, and you pass that hand, and you get a new hand, and you do that for 3 whole rounds. A round ends when your hand is empty, and then the person with the most points, depending on what kind of sushi they have, wins the game. And it's as simple as that. It is a lot like Seven Wonders, if you've ever played Seven Wonders, except I think that it's simpler, cheaper, and better than Seven Wonders.
I don't think it's just you that thinks that.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good elevator because you stopped at what I have is 50 seconds, so you still had 10 seconds left with that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, nice.
It is so hard to teach Seven Wonders, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've got opinions about Seven Wonders, but
You have to
usually people
have
hate-
played the game for the first time to even know how it's going to score. Like, it's all just groping around in the dark until the game is over, and you're like, oh, that's how the point works. Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
Well, we're having a little bit of a longer podcast today.
'Cause
Maybe
it's Halloween.
our Halloween treat to you, but
Ooh.
let's talk about your gripes with Seven Wonders, Alan.
It's really quick, and I get a lot of heat for this because I hate being that negative guy, but a lot of people love Seven Wonders, and I don't want to take that away from anyone. That being said, I've played Seven Wonders 3 times, and I won every time. I kind of crush it, and that doesn't matter because to me, I have no idea how I won because there's actually an equation that you have to follow. You don't know how many points. You can kind of guess, and you're interacting with the people to your left and right, and you're trying to pay attention. But there's so many things that go into it that at the end you have to fill out your little math sheet. And I've never seen it done quicker than 5 minutes. I know there's an app for that. That's great. I never got to use the app. And then it's like, oh, well, after all of our calculations, congratulations, Alan won. Like, oh, I did? Oh, okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, it's got that solitaire-esque feel to where we're all competing against each other. And I feel like you could start to understand some sort of theories or whatever. But it's kind of like, and I'm going to take this into a weird realm that our listeners are going to hate right now, but I play fantasy football. And every week, everyone after the game's been played has a perfect reason for why the points went down the way they did. And it's totally different than the reason they, played the players they played in the first place. And I feel like games like Seven Wonders have that, where you could say, well, obviously I won because I did this and this, and I knew this would happen. But it's totally different than what you were thinking when you went into it. It's just a crapshoot sometimes.
Right.
I hate revisionist history. It happens so much in social games. Like,
Yeah.
well, I totally could tell you were the spy or the whatever because of the blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's really easy after the fact, but did you really
this
know
isn't
that during the game?
Quantico. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't hear you say anything during the game. Oh, yeah, I could tell that you were going to win because you were talking about how Sally was going to win. Douche.
Yeah.
It happens all the time, yeah.
So Seven Wonders, going back to the start of our conversation, was like okay, we have 7 people, let's play Seven Wonders kind of thing. And for the majority, my play group did like it. Once we got through the first game, everyone was like, let's play that again, because now we understand how it works.
Right.
Yeah.
But
a better game with 7 in the title is 7 Sevens by Jason Tagmeyer.
Woo-hoo!
But I think there's this weird, and I've played Seven Wonders with a bunch of different people, and I've played it probably 6 or 7 times. There's this weird, like, let's rush to get this over kind of undertone to it. And I don't know if it's that, like, one person, like, makes their play instantly, and now they're waiting on everyone else, and you have one person at the other end of the table that's taking real long, and you're trying not to look at their hand, and they probably need help because they don't understand the rules. And there's just no easy way around that, whereas I can lay out the whole rule set to Sushi Go within 2 or 3 minutes. Like, here's your yellow sushi, here's your blue sushi, here's your red sushi. These are what the sushis do, and here's the little cheat sheet on the back of the rule book if you ever forget. And it's very, very simple, and it's very fun, and there's no reason why you shouldn't have Sushi Go, because I think it's like a $10 game.
It's super cheap, yeah.
Plus, everyone during the game is screaming and having fun, like, oh, you and Sushi Go. It's one of these things where you're passing.
You can get on $10.99 on Amazon.
Yeah. And there's the funniest card, I think, is the pudding, where most cards score at the end of the round, and there's 3 rounds, but the pudding doesn't score until the end of the game. And the person with the most pudding gets a bonus 6 points, and the person with the least amount of pudding gets minus 6 points. And then
just like in real life.
Like in real life. And so after the first round we played, I was the only one with pudding. I played it right away. No one else had pudding, so they moved it. And at the end of that round, somebody who was new was asking me about the pudding, and I just like re-explained what it did. And so we started round 2, and we all flipped over our first card, and everyone played pudding. And we all kind of laughed out loud because we understood now the importance of pudding. And so then we finished the round 3 came, and we all flipped over our first card, and again it was all pudding, and it was like, son of a bitch, because everyone was like, I thought I had enough pudding to catch up with you, Steve, because I played the pudding the first round. So it was just really, really funny, and it's just on that alone, like, if a game can make new people laugh right away, that's like an instant recommendation for me.
And Sushi Go's never going to ruin your night. It's in and out before you even realize that you've played a whole game. And so that's why it makes it, into my collection. It's just like, yeah, we can play this. And if you don't like it, we'll be on to the next game by the time you decide to complain about it.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that finishes our segment of Table Talk a little bit longer this week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, we had a topic in there as well. So it was like, Table Talk with the topic. It was fun.
Table Talk with the topic, with an appetizer.
Yeah.
Let's move over to our second segment of the show, which is just, I don't know if we had a name for it, but
spooky games.
Spooky games, yeah. Games you would play on Halloween or play for Halloween or remind you of just spookiness. Maybe games we're playing this weekend or games we played in the past. I think we've already talked about Mysterium, but Mysterium really fits that list, in my opinion.
Well, I, this weekend, have the event that I'm supposed to run at Ravenwood Castle, which is really exciting. I'm super nervous about it too, but it's already sold out. There's 50 people coming in to Ravenwood Castle, which is in southern Ohio. It's like 3 hours south of me. And they asked me to come host. So Tuesday Night Games is hosting Deathly Deals, an entire weekend of spooky themed Halloween experiments, but they're all really just excuses for me to test out really high player count social games. So I'm really excited because I'm basically trying to do every spooky game that I could come up with or modify. So that includes like Thingy and Deathly Deals, which is, I have never talked about Deathly Deals. It's trade secrets, Halloween themed. I went through monikers and I got all the monster cards that I would consider monsters, which is fun because like some of them's like Cherry, the chair character from Pee Wee Herman. What else have going on? Plenty of werewolf. One Night Werewolf, Ultimate Werewolf, One Night Ultimate Vampire, which I just got. So they're going to be able to play these sub games. So it's really exciting. One of them is also Assassin, which I'm nervous about playing because I've never even played it before and I designed it and I have no idea how that game's going to go. So it's just an entire weekend of these really spooky games. But as far as games,
Nice.
yeah, as far as games that people can play that are spooky themed, pretty much anything with the name werewolf, vampire in it, I would enjoy. Or I rethemed Two Rooms and a Boom to fit up to 50 players, and that's kind of interesting. And I called it Two Rooms and a Boo. Yeah, so I'll see how that goes as well. But yeah, I think any game that fits that werewolf theme, vampire theme, would be pretty tight for Halloween.
Do you guys have a preference of werewolf? Do you? I think the thing that
Absolutely.
thing that frustrates me at Gen Con is you only get vanilla werewolf, and I get it. It's fast, it's easy, but I kind of prefer ultimate werewolf, where you get Cupid and you get like the hunter and stuff. I think it's more funny and more exciting.
Oh yeah, across the board, Ultimate Werewolf to me is just the version of Werewolf. Everything before that is like a prototype for Ultimate Werewolf to me.
Yeah.
You guys hear about the Kickstarter for Witch Hunt?
I've seen that. Yeah.
It's Ultimate Werewolf. It's basically Ultimate Werewolf, but when you get eliminated, you still have things you can do. So you still have jobs. I think it's basically I haven't played it yet, to be fair, but from my understanding, when you get eliminated, then the people that survive can start being bodyguards, where then they can vote on who can't be killed that night. So they still like open their eyes or whatever and choose someone. So it's interesting stuff.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
This whole spooky game thing has been interesting to me because I've been sort of racking my brain since this summer. I think Alan can verify that on the way to the airport, taking me home from Ohio. I was asking him this question about, I see a lot of spooky themed games like Arkham Horror, but I'm curious if there are games that are actually scary to play, that you would be terrified to play, with your friends, as opposed to maybe tense to play or scary themed. Have you guys ever played a game that has actually been sort of scary to play or scary for your players?
Scariest thing for me is when I'm the spy in Spyfall.
Yeah. Yeah, that probably is the most tense I've been in any kind of board game in a while.
Oh yeah, being the spy in Spyfall is a lot like just being caught for a crime and being interrogated.
But I think tension may be different than actually scared, because I think that's a different feeling than when I'm going to a haunted house or when I was a
Right.
kid home alone and there was a noise in the basement. That's scary. There's social fear, which the game Fred has done. Like I pulled a card, and one of the things it dared me to do was to call my boss and congratulate him for doing a good job, which is which was petrifying because I'm thinking this could cost me my job. I'm sorry, I gotta lose this card. I don't want to call my boss on a weekend evening. Just say,
Huh.
hey, I just wanted to call to say, good work. You're doing a great job.
I don't know, man. I would have really appreciated a call from you like that.
I had a really cool game of Betrayal House on the Hill where I think it was a week before Halloween. This was probably 2 years ago. And I like changed the lights in our game room to like, those are like red lights. And
Oh,
I had like
nice.
like a candle or two lit, and everyone came over with the expectation of like, oh, we're playing like a spooky game for Halloween, and everyone was super into it, and like it wasn't like scary or anything, but it had a very like good Halloween like spooky vibe, and it was just very enjoyable.
You had buy-in from the players. I feel like
Yes.
if everybody agrees to commit to that world, it could be a lot more fun than, if everybody's sort of joking the whole time.
Yeah.
So I've been sort of scratching my head about this. I asked Chris Bryan from Bored with Life about it and what he thought about it, and we were talking. He was like, "Of course, yeah, definitely, you can make a game that's like that. That's scary to play." I asked my brother about it because he's a big horror fan, and we started talking about it. The only thing I came up with was the Ouija board, which I'm sure has tons of controversial opinions, but it's a board game put out by like Milton Bradley or Parker Brothers or whoever. But I think there are plenty of people who would not play with a Ouija board because of what it's about and whether it really works or not. The difference is the Ouija board doesn't brand itself as a game. It's this fake tool for contacting the other side.
It's an experience, not a game.
Exactly.
Maybe it's fake to you.
Yeah, maybe it's fake to you, but maybe it's not fake. Maybe you're messing around with something you shouldn't be doing. So, my brother and I started looking up, like, what are some real scary games out there? And one that came up, which I think is pretty interesting, is called One Player Hide and Go Seek, or Single Player Hide and Go Seek. And what you do is, it's one person, you alone in your house. You open all the windows. You turn on the TV to the closest to white noise you can get it and turn it down really low. Then you take a doll. You go into the bathroom. You cut open the doll and take out the stuffing. And then you clip your fingernails and put it inside the doll and put the doll in the sink facing the mirror. Then you run to somewhere else in the house. You find not really a hiding spot, but a spot that you're going to go and count because you're going to be it. And you count out loud from like 20 or 100, out loud, just as loud as you can. 100, 99, 98. And then at the end, ready or not, here I come. Now the game is not over until you find the doll. So you have to go throughout the house and sort of look around and then go back to that bathroom and see if the doll's still there. And what I like about it is you're kind of daring the universe to mess with you. You're just saying, all right, if you're going to do something weird, universe, now is the time, and I'm just going to subject myself to this intense situation all alone in order to find, in order to scare myself, essentially.
It
Yeah, I
would
wouldn't
be an
do that.
experience.
That seems terrifying.
Yeah, it does seem terrifying. And so the question is, do we just like put that on a card with 100 other cards that give you other scary experiences and package that as a game? Because I feel like that, I mean, I would never do that in a million years. I won't even go into a bathroom and say Bloody Mary. There's no way I'm going to put fingernails into a doll and count down from 100.
That actually really got me thinking about Tuesday night games in our company and the idea that we do want to make experiences more than games. It really boils down to the point, why are we even playing games? You could say for fun, but I mean, at the root, what's the fun? And I think with Two Rooms and a Boom, the fun is the bonding experience of team building and getting together and finding your teammates and working together and socializing. So after you're done, you have this very memorable evening. So I like the idea of games having that in mind.
Absolutely.
Now, there are plenty of games that are just fun, like Camel Up, which I played. I was like, oh, that was pretty solid. That was a solid game. But will I remember it? Exactly what I probably won't even remember who won like 2 weeks from now. But
Right.
yeah, so interesting. We got to make a scary game.
I'm a big believer in that. I love that Two Rooms and a Boom is a great convention experience. I'd love to have a booth that's like blacked out and you have to go in one at a time and be like, all right, here's our spooky game we're coming out with. Side story about Alan, by the way. Alan grew up on this, estate called, that they call Hinckley House. And it's this big house and a lake and all these other things. It's perfect for campfire, spooky stories and all this sort of thing. But his brother and his dad tell these ghost stories about the house that they either are very convinced by or are mimicking that they're convinced by. But the first time I went over there, I was pretty scared about it. And I was like, Alan, I never hear you tell these ghost stories. Aren't you scared? And he was like, nah, not really. And I was like, what do you mean? I mean, your brother and your father seem so convinced. And Alan sort of pulls me aside and almost like a confessional, he says, listen, man, you know what it never says on like a autopsy report or a coroner's report? And I was like, what? He says, it never says cause of death, ghost. And it just cracked me up so much that I always go back to it. And obviously the response would be like, well, yeah, well, they wouldn't say that. It would just look like a heart attack or something. But every time I think cause of death, ghost, and then maybe a question mark, cause of death, ghost. It cracks me up, and it definitely takes some fear away from me out of any tense situation.
SBJ, let me ask you, do you know who haunts that house?
I do not know.
You should, because it has to do with your freaking Twitter handle.
It's all,
That's right.
Why does this podcast always come back to my Twitter handle?
Because it's the most interesting thing we ever talk about.
Yeah. No, I'm not aware of the history there.
Well, as we explained, I think it was at episode 3 we talked about your Twitter handle.
Yeah.
It's the kid that killed himself in our lake. So we have this 5-acre lake, and a kid rowed a boat to the middle of the lake and killed himself by the name of Bernard. Some people say I shouldn't even say his name because anytime I say his name, I invoke the spirit of Bernard. But I'm not at the Hinkle house, so sorry, Dad. Bernard's coming tonight.
It's really cool. Well, I mean, not the kid killing himself, but the story.
Yeah,
It's a pretty terrifying story around like a fire in the middle of the night right next to the lake with like Alan's brother breaking down crying.
But I will say, if you guys want to put out a spooky game, the name of the game should be Cause of Death, Ghost.
Oh, that's a perfect title.
Oh, SBJ, you're not getting any credit for that. Thank you.
The only other Halloween game that I kind of thought there was like a Halloween themed King of Tokyo, but it wasn't really that great.
Didn't it just add one character or something like that?
It
Like,
added 2 characters and it added the orange dice instead of the black dice. That was it.
is the orange dye literally just orange instead of?
Yeah, they're exactly the same. They're just a different color palette.
Was this like a giveaway at like Gen Con, or could you get this? I feel
No,
like
yeah,
It's
it was
a legit expansion.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was limited edition, so they made it seem like it was very hard to find, but literally I'm sure you can go to Cool Stuff Inc. right now and buy it. Like, it never sold out, and it added 2 characters.
SBJ's neighbor's dog has it. That's how common it is.
Yeah, it added 2 characters, it added orange dice. That was about it. I did play, it might have been last Halloween where a bunch of friends and I played it, and it was just like, yep, it's just King of Tokyo. You guys want to play Monopoly?
If you didn't say it, I was. That's awesome.
Let's move on to interaction satisfaction.
Howdy. It's time for interaction satisfaction. Shoot us your emails, your comments, or your questions. We'll do our best to answer them.
If you guys ever have any feedback for us or any questions for the podcast, you can write in to podcast at tuesdaynightgames.com, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, that is the email. I don't know why I question myself. So write in any questions to the podcast at tuesdaynightgames.com. Alan has some stuff. I have some stuff. I'll start off. I have one email here from Levi. He or she writes in, says, "Hey, SBJ, before I go into my comment, I want to give a little history. I first heard about Tuesday Night Games from It's Super Effective. I first heard about It's Super Effective on the Board with Life Radio. So really, I'm a listener because of Donald Schultz. Give him kudos. JK. Great show so far."
Joking. Give him kudos.
Great show so far. I just wanted to let you know, because of your description of Evolution, I ordered it about 10 minutes after listening to the podcast. Thank you for the suggestion, Levi.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Evolution's a good game.
All right, so you want mine? Here's the mistake I made. I made the mistake of, on Facebook, I said, "Hey, I'm about to record the podcast. Anyone want any feedback?" And supposedly that was the invitation for everyone and SBJ's neighbor's pet dog to go ahead and say, "Give me a shout out." So I'm going to cut some of these out because there's a lot, but I'm going to shotgun through these. You guys ready for this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. Brian Kerrigan says, "Fireball Island is the best. +1 to Sean." He also says, "Evolution is very anti-carnivore. I feel it's a major flaw in the game, but to be fair, I haven't played the second edition." So what edition did you play, SPJ? Do you know if it was the second edition, first edition?
It was second edition, but I think he's referring to the expansion, which adds the flight.
Gotcha. Michael Ellick says, "My big takeaway from episode 5 was that one of the car talk guys died. Evolution discussion, having played it, looks like a huge cluster hump, but sounds cool. But the power grid discussion has me reconsidering trying the game." Those were like the most legitimate ones. Let me go on with the other ones that are here. Andrew Burkett wants me to mention Groundhog's Day Game Retreat, January 29th to the 31st here in Hudson, Ohio. Eric Emily says, I want to shout out. There you go. Jams Matthew says, shout out Protospiel Madison. It's this weekend, but at the time of the recording, that's already over. Sorry.
Rip.
Sorry, James.
Sorry, James. James Matthews is a good guy. Jeremiah Isley of Theology of Games fame says, I think you should have other podcasts or bloggers as guests. Winky face. That's him, I guess, saying that he wants us on the show. But Steve Avery says, shout me out, baby. I'll do the same for you guys. But then quickly, Peter Walken, the designer, said, they already shouted you out. And then Steve Avery says, haha, I'm such a dumbass. I guess I owe you both one. Grant Alberts is one of the leader guys of BOGA, which is Board Gamers of Greater Akron here in the Cleveland, Akron area. And he says, I don't know how much of your listener base is in the Akron area, but you could always plug BOGA. So there you go, BOGA. It's good. It's a good place to go, meet up people. But anyways, Liz Henderson says, never give up on your dreams, guys.
Finally, the support I needed.
Yeah, so
I was
sweet.
just about to give up.
Thanks,
Our
Liz.
friend and head booth monkey, Don Stroud, who also has his own podcast, Drink Spin Run, texted me the other day and he was like, I love you guys' podcast, but you're all so excited. It's sickening. And he said, also, I'm getting tired of listening to it because you guys never, ever mention me. And I was like, we mention you in every episode. And he's like, no, you don't. And I was like, you just got to listen through to the end, man. That's where you get mentioned the most.
I mean, I don't think we're that positive. We were pretty negative on Seven Wonders.
I think it just means our general tone of being excited about life and to be alive.
None of us have the attitude of like, hey guys,
Hey, why am I here?
let's do this. Yeah, speaking of which, Down Stroud says, please talk about me more. And then Donald Schultz of Board of Life fame says, talk about me more. Okay, Donald.
Speaking of like Donald or having guests on the podcast,
I'd love to have Donald on.
Yeah, if you want Donald on,
But not Don. Screw that guy.
If you want him on, tweet at him and then tag us. What's the Twitter handle we use?
Tues Night Games. TUES KNIGHTGAMES. Is that right?
Oh, God, no one's ever gonna tweet us.
I know, it was hard.
But go on.
So if you want any guest on, like Donald or somebody else, tweet at that guest using their Twitter handle, and then use our Twitter handle as well, just so we can start compiling a list to get guests on. If you want like people who design board games or people who review board games or Donald, those are your three categories. Go ahead and tweet at us. That makes it kind of easy for us to start organizing future shows for you guys.
I got 3 more worth mentioning, then we'll get out of here. This is actually more fun than I thought it would be, so this is cool. Eric Portney, which is a super sweet guy that got me a ticket for PAX because he wanted me to run 2 Rooms and a Boom at PAX Prime. So thanks, Eric. But he says, how about a shout out to the PAX Australia Enforcer volunteers who will have a copy of 2 Rooms and a Boom in the show library next week and plan to run some game of it for the attendees. Hey, thanks, guys. That's awesome. We're going to be in PAX Australia. I mean, 2 Rooms and a Boom.
Don't embarrass us.
Yeah, don't screw up running that. But here's a legit question from Micah Jacobson. He says, I was contemplating buying Smash Up. Have you all played it? If so, is it good? And yes, he said y'all, so maybe he's from your...
I hate that game. That game feels like it should be about ninjas fighting aliens, and instead it feels like subtracting numbers from another number.
Couldn't agree more. I was super excited. I love that you got the shuffle up. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to have dinosaurs and I'm going to have pirates. Pirate dinosaurs. 3 + 4 - 2. And now I have this base almost complete. Not quite yet. This doesn't feel like pirate dinosaurs.
I have a love-hate relationship with Smash Up. It came out when I was like ending...
Look how much I hate it.
ending my Pokemon TCG kind of thing, so it was cool because it was another card deck management, hand management kind of game. and it's good for that. It's quick, it's easy to teach. The calculating the bases is probably the worst part of the game, and that's like how you win the game.
That is the game.
Yeah. But like it's hard to sell. I would suggest that if you were interested in it, the only thing you would ever need to buy is the base set. Like the expansions don't add anything more to it. Like yeah, it adds more combinations, but if you don't like the base counting mechanics and you can't get a group to play, like don't do what I did and get like the base game and start getting expansions before like you've really dove headfirst into it. I mean, it's not regrettable. Like it's fine. It as like if it's usually on sale for like $20 on like Amazon or stuff, and I think that's a good price. But I wouldn't pay anything more than that because I don't think it's worth more than like an hour or 2 hours of time. But you can definitely get fun out of it.
Yeah, it's not too harmful of a game. It's just disappointing for me when I was going into it thinking, oh man, this sounds awesome. And I had high expectations because the theme sounds so cool. But then when you play it and realize that the sales pitch is as follows: do you want to play Smash Up? Do you like basic addition and subtraction? So that was the disappointing part. So, yeah.
It's like going on a blind date with somebody and it's going really well, and it turns out they're just kind of racist. And you're like, this was fun.
I might be biased to Smash Up too because I did play with the creator of Smash Up at Gen Con 2 years ago, which was kind of cool.
What's the creator's name?
Gotcha. I know he made Guillotine when under Wizards of the Coast. Do you know that?
Oh, he made Guillotine? I love that game.
Yeah, he did.
Awesome.
Paul Peterson?
Yes, Paul Peterson.
Good old Paul Peterson.
He's a really nice guy.
He is. He's a good guy. Last but not least, J.R. Honeycutt says, dude, I want to join you guys sometime. And then John Ferrone, who's Mike Ferrone's brother, and Mike Ferrone is like our oldest childhood friend, got so many Mike Ferrone stories for you. The most interesting of which is he's my brother's best friend, and my brother met him by telling Mike Ferrone in third grade that he had a pocket full of M&Ms. Goes up to Michael Ferrone, says, you want some M&Ms? Third grade, Mike Ferrone says, yeah, I'd love some. Well, they're in my pocket. You have to go get them. And realistically, my brother wasn't wearing any underwear, and the pocket was cut out of his pants. And they became best friends. But John Ferrone, Mike Ferrone's older brother, says, God, please tell the internet thing how awesome I am. Sure, John, you're awesome.
That might have been the scariest thing you've said all episode.
Well, it is Halloween. And that's all I got. So a whole bunch. I probably won't be doing this again with so many comments, but that was cool.
Yeah.
Send them in. Yeah.
If you guys have comments or questions or stories, please email us at podcast@tuesdaynightgames.com and we can read those off in a future episode. Other than that kind of wraps up our show for you guys. Hope you liked the hour edition that we put on. Most episodes are around 30 to 40 minutes, but we decided to go a little bit longer this week as a treat for you all,
or an indulgence, if you will.
Dun dun dun.
The last thing I have is that we are giving away a copy of Two Rooms and a Boom if you review us in iTunes by the end of the month. So anyone who reviews us in iTunes, they will be entered into the contest, and then on a future episode, we are going to read that the winner off, and then get your information, and then send you a copy of Two Rooms and a Boom, and maybe we'll do something else in the future like that. But for everyone who has left us a review so far, thank you. It means a lot to us. Your reviews in iTunes helps other people find the show easier, so much appreciated. And I think
every star you give us is one more submission, so increase your chances. If that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what I want you to believe.
Do you guys have anything else? Take that as a no.
No, I think that, hey, happy Halloween, everyone. I'm gonna be the bad professor. What are you dressing up for Halloween, Sean?
I always say Speed Racer, and then I never do anything.
What about you, SVJ?
Nothing.
You're wearing nothing?
Yeah. I think it's a safe bet, really.
Going nude? Hopefully that which is cursed doesn't affect
with
you
his body. It's
nude.
definitely a safe bet.
Yeah,
it is.
It would be insulting if I went as anything else.
If I could wear SBJ as a costume, I totally would.
Sean, where can they find you?
At Sean McCoy, SeanMcCoy.
And Alan, where can our listeners find you?
At Alan Girding, ALANGER Ding, DING.
Awesome. You can follow me on Twitter. It is at Dragging a Lake. Otherwise, this has been our episode of the Tuesday Night Podcast.
My curse hits you once more, SBJ.
And we are
Finished.
Yeah.